بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والصلاة والسلام على رسول الكريم. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله تعالى وبركاته, and welcome to Fiqh al-Muamalat online classes. And today's session is a continuation of the previous sessions that we have started, and we are still in the relationship between Murabahah and Wad. Let's start by saying that the asset purchase, when we talk about the asset here, we refer to any type of asset. It could be movable, immovable asset, like for example houses, cars, machineries, and so on and so forth. This asset purchased by the seller, and when we say the seller here, we mean by that the Islamic financial institution like a bank, for example, because the seller here in the context of the Murabahah is the bank, because the bank will sell to the clients who is the purchase orderer. So the asset purchased by the sellers according to the Murabahah assets orderer requirement may be delivered to the purchaser orderer, who is the client, basically, who initiated the wad of purchaser, to be held as a trust before entering into the Murabahah contract. And why this scenario happened? Because in the Murabahah, the clients, who is basically the one who do the undertaking, the wad, will act as a agent and will act on behalf of the client, on behalf of the bank. And as a result of that, the logistics and the requirements in the purchase and the acquisition of the asset could be done by him and delivered to some places based on the agree upon between the financial institutions and the clients. So in case the asset is delivered to the locations by the what's called a purchase orderer, who is the client here will be holding the asset as a amana, as a trust. Why? Because he's not the owner yet of the asset, because as you know, the Murabahah different stages. This stage is where the bank buy the assets through the agents, deliver the asset to a specific locations that has been agreed upon, and it could be the locations under the custody and what's called the responsibility of the clients as a trustee, as agents, and as a result of that, the assets still belong to the bank. The asset and ownership still belong to the asset. Why? Because Murabahah is not executed yet. So in this transitions, the asset will be held as a trust in the hand of the agents, who is the client, who is the purchase orderer, until the Murabahah transactions is concluded. Then the risk would be transferred to the clients. So again, just to recap, in the scenario where the asset is purchased and delivered to the what's called purchase orderer, the clients, in these transactions, he would be acting as a trustee, as Amin, holding this asset on behalf of the bank, because Murabahah is not yet concluded. The following point is that the losses and damage of the asset in the possessions of the purchase orderer, who is the client, before entering into the Murabahah contract, due to negligence of the purchase orderer, shall be borne by the purchase order. Meaning that in case that this asset, like machineries, like cars, whatever kind of asset is damaged in the hand of the purchase orderer, who is the client, basically, due to negligence or misconduct or breach of any term and conditions, so basically the client will be held liable, and he will be compensating whatever due as a result of this action. Of course, the rules of a trustee is that if there is no negligence, no misconduct, no breach of term and condition, so basically he will not be liable, he will not be responsible. But in case there is any negligence triggered, during the possessions or transitions time from the side of the purchase orderer, he will be held liable and responsible. The following point is that the purchase orderer at the stage of WAD may act as a kafil to the sellers to guarantee the sales delivery of the asset by the supplier to the asset. Meaning that, as you know, in a Murabahah or any transactions, the parties may take different positions. Like in Musharaka, you could be partner and you could be also ajir, you know, if you take a positions in the Musharaka. In the same here in Murabahah, the Murabahah, what's so called, there is a stage of promisor and promisee where there is an undertaking, and there is what's so called a stage of agency and principal, agents and principal, whereby the purchase order will be act as agent. And there is also a status of kafala or kafir. So the purchase orderer or the clients could be act as agent, could be act as kafir. So in case he's acting as kafir, basically he will be responsible and liable for whatever happened during the delivery of the asset. And of course, those what I have highlighted, like for example, the agency, the kafala, all are options. They are not mandatory in the structure of Murabahah, but they are options. It is left to the how the bank will structure its SOP in its Murabahah facility, and also it goes back to the negotiations between the various parties. But as an options that could be included, so agency could be one of the options, kafala could be one of the options, and in case he's acting as a result of that, so basically he will be acting as a kafil, ensuring the safety of the asset and its delivery. Otherwise, he will be held liable and responsible. The following point is that any losses incurred due to the late delivery of the asset to the sellers mean here we are talking about the financial institutions, to be borne by the purchase orderer as a kafil, which means that if the purchase orderer, who is the clients, take the status of kafil in the delivery, meaning the kafala and the guarantee of delivery wasn't undertaken by a third party but by the kafil, then he will be liable in case the delivery is late, and as a result of that, any losses incurred of such will be compensated by the bank to the bank by the clients who's acting in a different capacity here as a kafil. The following point is that damages of defect arise after the delivery of the asset to the purchase orderer shall not be covered under this guarantee agreement. Of course, once the delivery is done, so the responsibility of the guarantee basically is over, and as a result of that, any losses, any damage incurred after the delivery, so the clients or the kafir will not be liable. And the reason being is that the transitions of the delivery has been performed, and damages, losses, incurs happen basically after the delivery of the asset. And again, here it goes back to the types of the arrangements, the type of kafala, the type of guarantee that has been agreed upon between the institutions and the clients as acting as a kafir or otherwise. Let's stop here for the WAD, and we carry on the discussion in the coming sessions. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh.